Daniel Kern stood on the observation deck of Outpost Vega 9, his eyes tracing the endless black of space. Stars stretched like silver threads across the void, distant and cold, yet strangely comforting. The outpost had been quiet for weeks, routine scans and supply checks filling the days. Daniel liked quiet. It gave him time to think, to imagine worlds beyond Earth. But tonight, the calm would break. A flicker on the scanner caught his attention. A small blip, moving against the usual patterns of asteroids and stray satellites. At first, he thought, it was a rogue mining drone, perhaps a lost ship from the outer colonies. But as he watched, the blip changed direction sharply, coming closer to Vega 9's orbit. Daniel's pulse quickened. This was no ordinary object. He tapped a series of commands on the console, bringing up a more detailed scan. The shape of the vessel slowly appeared on the display. Angular, sleek, and unlike any human design he had ever seen. It glowed faintly, with an eerie light that seemed to pulse with a rhythm of its own. Daniel swallowed hard. This is not from the colonies, he muttered to himself. The intercom buzzed. Lieutenant Arya Chen's voice came through, steady as always. Daniel, you look pale. What is it? Something approaching the outpost, Daniel replied, trying to keep his voice calm. I don't recognize the ship design. It's old, but not from our records. Arya's breath hitched. Old? How old? I don't know yet, he admitted. But it's alive, in a way. The energy readings are strange. By the time the ship had entered a stable orbit, alarms remained silent. Vega 9 systems could detect threats, but they had never encountered anything like this. The ship didn't move aggressively, it hovered almost gracefully. It was as if it was waiting, watching. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. He had read stories, legends really, from Earth about ancient alien civilizations, things humanity had only glimpsed in old transmissions. But he never thought he would see one with his own eyes. Then, the hatch opened. A figure emerged. Daniel blinked, certain he was seeing things wrong. The being was tall, taller than any human he had ever met. Its skin was pale, almost silver in the glow of the outpost lights, with a sheen that reminded Daniel of moonlight on water. Its eyes were a striking crimson, glowing faintly, and sharp features gave an impression both noble and dangerous. Daniel froze. Every instinct screamed that this was a threat. Yet the alien did not move aggressively. It simply looked at him. And in that gaze, Daniel felt something he could not describe. Recognition. The alien's voice was soft but clear, echoing slightly in the deck. Aryan? Daniel's mouth went dry. He stumbled over his words. I'm Daniel. I think you have me mistaken. The alien's crimson eyes widened. Its hands lifted slowly, not in attack, but in a gesture almost of disbelief. No. It cannot be. Arya, who had arrived at his side, whispered, Daniel, what's happening? I don't know, he admitted, his heart racing. She thinks she knows me. The alien, who Daniel now learned was a she, took a step, closer. Her movement was fluid, almost hypnotic. I have seen you before, she said. Her voice trembled slightly. Long ago. I thought I lost you forever. Daniel shook his head, trying to understand. I don't know you. I've never seen you before. You must be mistaken. She tilted her head, her eyes studying him as if reading something hidden deep inside. No mistake, she whispered. You are him. The outpost grew tense. People started arriving, weapons raised, eyes wide with fear and confusion. Daniel raised a hand, signaling them to hold. He didn't understand why she called him, but there was a sincerity in her tone that made him pause. Who are you? Daniel asked finally, his voice firmer. I am Sarathis, she said, her voice now steady. I come from a place you do not know, a place that was once at war with your kind. But I am not your enemy, Daniel. I need to speak with you. Daniel glanced at Arya. Her brow was furrowed, worry clear in her eyes. Daniel, she looks dangerous. We should... No, Daniel interrupted. Not yet. I need to know what she means. I need to understand. Sarathas's eyes softened slightly, though the faint glow of red never left them. She stepped closer, her gaze never leaving his. I have searched for you across the stars, she said. I thought I would never see you again, and yet here you are. Daniel's mind raced. The words made no sense. How could she know him? He had lived a quiet life, far from any galactic war or alien conflicts. And yet, looking into her eyes, he felt a strange pull, a connection that he could not explain. Why do you call me Aryan? He asked cautiously. Sarathas's breath caught. Because that is who you were to me. Long ago. Before the wars. Before the... Silence. Daniel felt a shiver run down his spine. The term silence sounded like a warning, a memory too heavy for her to speak aloud, yet the tone of her voice carried pain, loss, and longing. Before he could respond, the ship's communication panel flickered. A transmission came through, alerting the outpost to movement near the docking bay. Daniel and Sarathas turned toward the viewports. Outside, a group of small, fast-moving ships had arrived. They looked aggressive, their intentions clear. Arya stepped forward, ready to defend the outpost. Daniel, we have to... No, Daniel said firmly. He turned to Sarathas. Stay close to me. I don't know who they are, but I trust you. For now. Sarathas nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. I will not harm you, she promised. Not now. Not ever, if I can help it. The raiders, though small, were fast, circling the outpost as if sizing up their target. Daniel realized the outpost's defenses were limited. If they attacked directly, it could be catastrophic. Thinking quickly, Daniel accessed the docking bay controls. He opened the hangar doors, signaling Sarathas to follow. Get inside your ship, he instructed. We can't fight them here. It's too dangerous. She obeyed silently, moving with a grace that made him momentarily forget the threat outside. Daniel followed, shutting the hangar doors behind them. Inside Sarathas's ship, the atmosphere was unlike any human design. The walls seemed alive, faintly glowing with energy patterns that pulsed rhythmically. Daniel's hand brushed against a console, feeling warmth and a subtle vibration beneath his fingers. Your ship. It's unlike anything I've seen, he said, awe creeping into his voice. It is old, Sarathas replied, older than your colonies, and it has seen more than you can imagine. Daniel swallowed hard. Then, you've been out here a long time? Yes, she said softly, waiting, searching, hoping. Her crimson eyes met his, and for a moment, the danger outside seemed distant, almost irrelevant. And now, I have found you. Daniel could feel the weight of her words, the history in her voice. Something in him stirred, a recognition he could not explain. She spoke as if he were a part of a story long forgotten, yet alive within the stars. Suddenly, the ship shuddered, sensors flared. Daniel looked at the view screen. The raiders had begun their assault, firing energy pulses that struck the hull with thunderous impact. Sarathas moved to a control panel, her fingers dancing over unfamiliar symbols. The ship responded instantly, energy shields flaring and deflecting. The attacks. Daniel watched, astonished at her skill and the power of her vessel. We don't have much time, she said, her voice calm despite the chaos. They will not give up easily, but I know a place. A safe place. We can talk there. We can understand. Daniel nodded. Then let's go. As the ship lifted off, leaving Vega 9 behind, Daniel felt a mixture of fear and fascination. He did not know who this alien was or why she thought he was someone else. But for the first time in his life, he felt that he was part of something larger, something beyond the human colonies he had always known. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched endlessly, and among them, Daniel realized, History had a way of reaching across time, across species, and now, across him. The alien vampire who called him Aryan had found him, and the encounter would change everything. The hum of the alien ship surrounded Daniel as it glided through space. The view outside the viewport was unlike anything he had seen. Nebula clouds swirling in colors no human had ever named. Stars clustered in shapes that seemed almost deliberate, almost alive. Yet, despite the beauty, Daniel could not shake the unease inside him. He was on a ship not made for humans, guided by a being who called him by a name he had never known. Sarathis moved with quiet grace, her crimson eyes occasionally flicking to him. "You are quiet," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. "I expected more questions." Daniel exhaled slowly. "I have too many, but I don't know where to start." He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. Why do you think I am Aryan?" Her gaze softened and she looked out at the stars. "Because you carry his face, his presence, not just in form, but in spirit." She turned back to him, her eyes searching his. "He was my friend, my companion, a human who fought beside me when my people were hunted, when we thought all hope was lost. And now, looking at you, I see him again." Daniel shook his head, trying to make sense of it. "I've never fought a war in the stars. I've never left the colonies beyond the outer rim." Sarathis's lips curled in a faint smile, tinged with sadness. "Then perhaps you are not him. But something in you echoes him. Something the universe keeps repeating, the courage, the choices, the heart." Daniel looked at her, startled by her words. He had never thought of himself as special. A patrol officer on a remote outpost did not usually change the course of galaxies. Yet Sarathis's tone carried certainty that made his mind spin. "Tell me," he said finally. "Tell me about him. Tell me about this Aryan." Sarathis nodded and began to speak, her voice steady now, recounting a tale that seemed almost impossible. "Long ago, my people, what humans called the vampires, were hunted across the stars. Not for cruelty, but for survival. We fed on energy, to endure, not to harm. But fear made humans attack us wherever we appeared. Many of my kind were lost. And in the wars, I met him. A human soldier named Aryan. He did not fear me. He fought beside me, saved me more times than I can count. We made a pact, to survive, to protect those who could not defend themselves." Daniel listened, eyes wide. The stories of his own human history never mentioned any wars with alien species like this. Yet, the conviction in her voice made him wonder. "And you thought you lost him?" "Yes," Sarathis said softly. Her gaze fell to her hands, long and elegant. "In the great silence, the final battle. He was taken. I searched for decades, traveling systems no human had charted. I thought I would never see him again. And now, here you are." Daniel's pulse raced. "But I'm not him. I never left my colony. I've only lived here." Sarathis tilted, her head, studying him closely. "Perhaps the universe has its ways. Perhaps echoes of the past return in unexpected forms. Or perhaps you are him, reborn in a time that does not yet remember. Either way, I needed to see you. I needed to—" "No." The ship shuddered slightly, and Daniel glanced at the controls. "Are we safe?" he asked, tension creeping into his voice. Sarathis's hands moved quickly over the panels. "For now. But our path is not yet free. The raiders who attacked the outpost are only the beginning. There are others who remember the old wars, who fear what we carry." Daniel leaned against the console, trying to take in everything. He felt a strange mix of fear, awe, and curiosity. Here was an alien, once, thought a legend, speaking of wars and friendships from a past he did not remember, but whose echo seemed to pulse in him. "Why help me? Why save the outpost?" he asked. Sarathis's gaze met his. Because you are part of the pattern. Because when I look at you, I see what is possible. I see hope, even if it is hidden beneath layers of time and fate. I did not come to destroy. I came to protect and perhaps to find a chance to finish what was left undone long ago. Daniel nodded slowly, unsure of what he felt. A part of him wanted to ask more, but another part was wary. He had grown up in human colonies where strangers, especially alien strangers, were to be treated with caution. Yet Sarathus's presence felt different. She radiated strength, but also something deeper: loss, longing, and honesty. Hours passed as the ship moved through the stars. Sarathus remained near the controls, occasionally speaking of navigation or energy readings, but the silence between them was not uncomfortable. Daniel found himself studying her, noticing details: the subtle way her eyes reflected light, the faint rhythm in her movements, the quiet authority in her voice. At one point, the ship passed through a cluster of glowing asteroids. Daniel pressed, his hand against the viewport, mesmerized. This is beautiful. I've never seen anything like it. Sarathus glanced at him briefly. The universe is full of wonders, she said. But beauty is only half the story. There is danger, as well. And history always leaves its mark. Daniel's curiosity won over caution. Tell me more about him, he said softly. About Arian. What was he like? Sarathus's crimson eyes softened further. He was brave, but not reckless. Kind even in the midst of war. He had a sense of humor that could lighten the darkest moments. He cared deeply for those who could not fight for themselves. I trusted him with my life. I thought I lost him when the galaxy became silent, when the stars no longer carried our voices. Daniel felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never known this Arian, and yet the qualities she described felt familiar, as if embedded somewhere, deep inside him. He did not know if it was coincidence or something more, but the connection was undeniable. The ship's sensors beeped suddenly, breaking the quiet. Daniel's eyes shot to the panel. Another signal? He asked. Yes, Sarathus said, fingers flying over the controls. Something following us. Not the raiders from Vega 9. Something else. Older. Smarter. Daniel swallowed. Older than the raiders? Much older, Sarathus replied. And dangerous. We need to be careful. These are remnants of the enemies who hunted my people long ago. They do not forgive, and they do not forget. Daniel felt a chill. Why now? Why after all this time? Sarathus's eyes darkened. Because you exist. Because the pattern continues. And because they sense that the balance of power is shifting again. They fear what you represent. Daniel tried to understand, but the complexity was overwhelming. He had joined the patrol to maintain safety, not to become part of a cosmic story stretching back decades, involving aliens, wars, and echoes of lives long past. Yet, here he was. And Sarathus's gaze held an unspoken truth. There was no turning back an hour. Hours passed as the ship navigated through asteroid fields and nebulae, avoiding detection from sensors far more advanced than human technology. Daniel remained at her side, asking questions, learning fragments of her history and the history of her people. Each story she told revealed a civilization rich with intelligence, culture, and sacrifice. A people misunderstood by humanity for their need to survive. At one point, Daniel asked, "Do you forgive them? Humans?" Sarathus's eyes flickered. "I do not hate them. Not all of them. The first humans I met, like Arion. They showed me that courage and kindness exist even among those who fear, and so I hold on to hope that what happened long ago can be changed. That fear does not have to rule the future." Daniel nodded slowly. "Then, maybe that's why we met. Maybe this is a chance to rewrite the past." Sarathus allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Perhaps, but rewriting the past is Not simple. We must face the present first. The stars stretched endlessly ahead. Daniel knew that the universe was vast, full of dangers and mysteries. But as he looked at Sarathis, he felt a spark of hope, a connection to something larger than himself. He did not know if he was truly Aryan reborn, or simply a human drawn into the echoes of history. But one thing was clear. His life, and perhaps the fate of many others, was about to change forever. And far ahead, in the shadowed reaches of the galaxy, remnants of an ancient enemy watched. They had sensed the presence of the alien vampire and the human who bore the face of the past. They were patient. They were waiting. And the story of Daniel and Sarathis was only beginning. The alien ship moved through the void like a shadow among stars. Daniel's eyes followed the swirling nebulae outside the viewport, but his mind was occupied with questions that had no answers yet. Sarathis sat beside the controls, calm and focused, yet Daniel could see a tension in her eyes that she did not voice. "Why now?" Daniel asked again, breaking the silence. "Why appear after all these years?" Sarathis did not answer immediately. She adjusted the ship's energy flow, her fingers moving over controls that seemed to respond instinctively to her touch. "Because the balance of the galaxy is shifting," she said finally. "There are those who remember the wars, those who fear what my kind represents, and now you are part of it. You are part of the reason they are stirring." Daniel swallowed hard. "But I'm just a patrol officer. I've never fought in wars. I've barely left Vega 9. Sarathis's crimson eyes softened. "Courage is not measured by titles or experience, Daniel. It is measured by the choices you make, the risks you take to protect life and hope. You carry that courage whether you know it or not." Daniel looked down at his hands, feeling the weight of her words. He had always thought of himself as ordinary, a man who performed routine tasks in the outer colonies. Yet here he was, drawn into a story older than human memory, standing beside a being who called him by a name he did not know, yet seemed familiar in ways he could not explain. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alert. A signal appeared on the sensors, moving quickly and deliberately through the asteroid field ahead. Daniel leaned over the console. "What is that?" Sarathis's fingers flew over the controls. "It is not human," she said quietly. "It is one of the remnants of the war. Hunters who survived the collapse of my people's strongholds. They have been waiting, watching for decades." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. "Waiting? For us?" "Yes," Sarathis replied. "For me, and for you. They will not forgive easily. They will not stop." Before Daniel could respond, the shadow of a sleek ship appeared on the viewport, moving with unnatural speed. Its design was alien, angular, and menacing. Energy pulses flared from its hull as it locked onto Sarathis's ship. "Brace yourself," Sarathis said. "This will not be easy." Daniel grabbed the side of his seat as the first pulses struck. The alien ship shuddered under the impact, but a shimmering shield flared to life, deflecting the attacks. He watched in awe as Sarathis maneuvered the ship with precision, weaving through the asteroid field. "They know our capabilities," she said, voice steady despite the chaos. "They have studied my kind for centuries, but they underestimate the strength of humans." Daniel frowned. "Strength? Me? Heir to your courage," Sarathis interrupted gently. "It guides me. You act without fear, without hesitation, even when the danger is clear. That is what makes you extraordinary." Daniel felt a strange warmth in his chest, a mixture of pride and disbelief. He had never thought of himself as extraordinary. Yet, under her gaze, he felt important, necessary. The battle intensified. The remnant ship fired repeatedly, trying to disable Sarathis's shields. Daniel noticed that their attacks were precise, as if the enemy knew the weaknesses of her vessel. Sarathis's hands moved. In a blur, adjusting energy flows, redirecting power to the shields and engines. "We need to draw them away from the colony," she said suddenly, If they follow us, Vega 9 will not survive. Daniel nodded, understanding the urgency. Lead the way. I'll help wherever I can. As they weaved through the asteroid field, Daniel began to notice something unusual. The remnant ship was not just aggressive, it was cautious, almost hesitant. It moved like a predator stalking prey, but with a strange intelligence that made every maneuver feel deliberate. They are studying us, Daniel said, pointing at the viewport. They're not just attacking, they're learning. Sarathas's eyes narrowed. Yes, that is what makes them dangerous. They do not fight blindly, they adapt, and they will not stop until they achieve their goal. Daniel felt a surge of adrenaline. He had never faced anything like this. Yet, despite the fear, he felt a sense of purpose. He was not just a patrol officer anymore. He was part of something larger, something that required him to act, to think, and to survive. The battle reached a critical point when the remnant ship split into smaller craft, surrounding them from multiple angles. Daniel gripped the console, trying to follow Sarathas's instructions as she coordinated evasive maneuvers. Focus on their energy outputs, she instructed. Their smaller ships rely on bursts of power. We can exploit that. Daniel adjusted the sensors following her guidance. He found the patterns, the weak points in the attackers' formations, and relayed the information. Sarathas responded, immediately, firing concentrated energy pulses that disabled several of the smaller ships. For a moment, Daniel felt a surge of confidence. Together, they were a team. He realized that despite the alien nature of her abilities, Sarathas relied on his human instincts, his perception of patterns and timing. But the victory was brief. The remnants regrouped, forming a larger, more cohesive formation. Their energy pulses became more precise, more relentless. Daniel felt the ship shudder again under the assault. We cannot outrun them forever, Sarathas said, her tone calm but firm. We must confront them directly. There is a place nearby, a hidden stronghold from the old wars. If we can reach it, we may find safety and answers. Daniel's heart raced. A stronghold? Hidden? How far? Close enough, Sarathas replied. But we will need to move quickly. And once we arrive, there are truths you must face. Truths about my people, and perhaps about yourself. Daniel nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at him. He did not know what truths awaited or how he could be prepared for them. Yet as he watched Sarathas navigate the ship with skill and determination, he felt a growing trust. She had saved the colony, guided him through the dangers of space, and now led him into the unknown. The journey to the stronghold was tense. The remnants followed at a distance, their attacks sporadic but threatening. Daniel and Sarathas maneuvered through asteroid belts, weaving through narrow passages that seemed impossible for larger ships. Finally, they arrived at a hidden system, a small cluster of planets and moons largely forgotten by human charts. In the center floated a massive structure, partially concealed by asteroids and nebula gas. It was clearly artificial, ancient, and formidable. This is it, Sarathas said softly. The stronghold of the old wars. Here, we may find the answers we seek, and the safety we need to survive. Daniel stared at the structure, awe mixed with apprehension. It looks abandoned. Abandoned, but not empty, Sarathas replied. There are guardians, traps, and records that may tell us what we need to know, and perhaps they will reveal why the remnants pursue us so relentlessly. The ship descended cautiously, landing on a platform that extended from the structure like a hand reaching from the void. The airlock opened with a hiss, and Daniel followed Sarathas into the ancient halls. Inside, the architecture was unlike anything he had seen. Smooth, flowing surfaces merged with intricate patterns of light, energy coursing through the walls, like veins. Holographic displays flickered to life as Sarathas approached, revealing images of battles long past, ships and warriors frozen in time. This was my people's sanctuary, Sarathas explained. Here, we recorded history, preserved knowledge, and trained those who would protect our kind. Few humans have ever seen this, and fewer still would survive its defenses. Daniel's eyes roamed over the records, feeling a mix of fascination, and dread. The scale of the history was overwhelming. Centuries of wars, alliances, losses, and sacrifices, and somewhere in it all, there was the story of Arian, the man Sarathis claimed to have known. "Will I find him here?" Daniel asked, almost in a whisper. Sarathis shook her head. "Perhaps not in the way you think, but you will find pieces of the past, fragments that may explain why you were chosen to be here, why our paths crossed." As they moved deeper into the stronghold, Daniel realized that their journey was only beginning. The remnants outside were still watching, still waiting. But inside this ancient place, he and Sarathis could uncover the truth, prepare for the dangers ahead, and perhaps find a way to face the enemies that had haunted her for decades. And somewhere in the shadows of history, Daniel could feel the echo of a man he never knew, a human whose courage and friendship had changed the course of an alien race's destiny. The hidden war of the past and present had begun, and Daniel was no longer just an observer. He was part of the story, and the choices he made would shape the future of both humans and Sarathis's people. The hidden stronghold loomed around Daniel and Sarathis like a sleeping giant. Its walls pulsed faintly with energy, the hum of long-dormant systems vibrating through the floor beneath their feet. Daniel could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. Each step he took echoed through halls that had not been walked by a living being in centuries. "This place is incredible," Daniel whispered, his eyes scanning the flowing walls and flickering holograms. "It's like nothing I've ever seen." Sarathis moved beside him, her crimson eyes alert. "It is more than that," she said. "It is a repository of knowledge and experience. Here my people recorded everything, every battle, every choice, every lesson, and here we were tested." "Tested?" Daniel echoed, uncertainty in his voice. "Yes," Sarathis said. "The guardians of this stronghold were designed to evaluate anyone who enters. They do not judge by age or species, but by courage, wisdom, and cooperation. If we are to survive, we must pass their trial." Daniel swallowed. "A trial? Are we in danger?" "In more ways than you know," Sarathis admitted. "But the trial is not meant to destroy. It is meant to prepare, to show us our potential and our weaknesses." They moved deeper into the stronghold. Holographic panels flickered on automatically as they passed, projecting images of warriors, battles, and landscapes long vanished from memory. Daniel felt a strange connection to the scenes, as if he had seen them before in dreams he could not fully remember. The first test came quickly. The corridor opened into a wide chamber, its floor etched with glowing patterns that shifted and pulsed as they stepped inside. At the center hovered a sphere of pure energy, radiating warmth and light. As they approached, a voice echoed through the chamber, calm yet commanding. "Travelers, to proceed, you must demonstrate unity. One alone cannot pass. Only together can you succeed." Daniel glanced at Sarathis. "Unity? How do we do that?" "Trust me," she said simply. "Follow my lead." Immediately, the sphere projected images of obstacles, walls closing in, energy barriers, gaps in the floor. The chamber seemed alive, reacting to their movements and decisions. Daniel realized they could not rush. Every choice affected the outcome. Hesitation could trap them. Miscommunication could fail them. "Step forward together," Sarathis instructed. "When the walls shift, I will signal you. Synchronize with me." Daniel nodded, his heart pounding. The walls began to move, shifting like liquid metal. He followed Sarathis's movements precisely. When she ducked, he ducked. When she jumped, he jumped. Step by step, they moved through the chamber, their motions perfectly coordinated. The sphere glowed brighter as they progressed. Daniel felt a sense of exhilaration. He had never worked so closely with another being, especially one so alien, and yet their cooperation felt natural, almost instinctive. Finally, they reached the other side. The sphere expanded, bathing the chamber in brilliant light. A new voice spoke, gentle but firm. "Your unity is proven. You may proceed." Daniel exhaled, his hands shaking slightly. "That That was incredible. Sarathis smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting pride and relief. Few humans could have matched the precision and trust required. You are stronger than you realize. They continued through the stronghold, encountering more challenges. One test placed them in a room filled with illusions, images of their deepest fears and regrets. Daniel saw his home colony in flames, the people he cared about trapped in danger he could not prevent. Sarathis faced visions of her fallen comrades, the friends she had lost over centuries. "Focus," she whispered. "This is not real. It is designed to test your mind, your resolve. We must not falter." Daniel forced himself to breathe steadily. He could feel the fear pressing against him, the doubt creeping in, but he held on to Sarathis's guidance. Together they moved through the illusions, refusing to react to false threats, trusting in each other and their own judgment. The trials grew more complex. They were tested not only physically, but morally. Holographic beings appeared, requiring choices that weighed the lives of many against the safety of few. Daniel hesitated at first, unsure of how to act. But Sarathis's presence reminded him of the values she had described: the courage, the compassion, the determination to protect life. Step by step, they navigated each moral puzzle. Daniel realized that the trial was not merely about skill or strength. It was about humanity itself. The chamber forced him to confront what it truly meant to be human: empathy, cooperation, courage in the face of fear, and the willingness to sacrifice for the greater good. Hours passed. The tests became increasingly difficult, combining physical challenges with puzzles and moral dilemmas. Daniel's muscles ached, his mind was fatigued, yet he felt a sense of clarity growing inside him. Each challenge revealed more than just his abilities. It revealed his character. Finally, they reached the last chamber. The air inside was still, charged with a quiet energy that made Daniel's skin tingle. At the center stood a pedestal, and upon it hovered a small, crystal-like object. A voice filled the room, deep and resonant. "To complete the trial, one must remain behind, to guide the legacy, to protect what is entrusted. Will you accept this responsibility?" Daniel looked at Sarathis, his heart pounding. He understood the meaning immediately. To finish the trial, someone would have to stay behind in the stronghold, to maintain the guardianship of knowledge and power, while the other could return to the wider galaxy. Sarathis's eyes met his, filled with a mixture of hope and sorrow. "You do not have to do this," she said softly. "The choice is yours, but know, if you leave, the legacy may be lost." Daniel felt the weight of the decision pressing on him. He had never imagined such a choice, never imagined he would be called to remain in a place untouched by time to protect knowledge and power. But as he looked at Sarathis, he understood something fundamental. This was not just a trial of survival, but a trial of purpose. He began, then paused. The chamber seemed to hold its breath with him. "I will do it," he said finally. "If it ensures that the legacy survives, I will stay." Sarathis's eyes glistened, a single tear sliding down her pale cheek. "You honor me and all who came before," she whispered. The crystal object floated toward Daniel, settling gently in his hands. Warmth radiated from it, filling him with energy and clarity. He felt a connection to the stronghold, to its history, and to the countless lives that had shaped it. In that moment, he understood that he was no longer just Daniel Kearns, patrol, officer of Vega 9. He was a guardian, a bridge between past and future, between humans and Sarathis's people. Sarathis placed her hand lightly on his shoulder. "I will return to the colonies," she said. "I will carry your story and the story of this place to humanity. They must know that fear does not define us. Courage, compassion, and unity do." Daniel nodded, feeling both pride and sadness. He would miss her presence, the guidance she had provided, but he understood the necessity. His role here was vital. He was part of something greater, something timeless. As Sarathis departed, Daniel turned back to the chamber. the guardians of the stronghold, holographic energy-based beings, pulsed around him, acknowledging his acceptance of the role. The air thrummed with energy, and he felt a deep sense of belonging. Hours, days, perhaps weeks passed. Time was different inside the stronghold. Daniel learned to navigate its systems, to understand the archives, to communicate with the guardians. He trained, studied, and grew stronger, guided by the echoes of the past and the presence of the crystal that connected him to the legacy. Outside, the galaxy continued. The remnants of the old wars were still at large, still waiting, still observing. But inside the stronghold, Daniel had become more than human. He had become a link between worlds, a keeper of knowledge, and a guardian of hope. And far away, Sarathis watched from the stars, carrying the story of the trial, of humanity's courage, and of the man who would guard the legacy. She knew that one day, their paths might cross again, and when they did, the bond forged in the trials of the stronghold would shine brighter than any danger, brighter than fear, brighter than the shadows of the past. The trial of humanity had been passed, but the story was far from over. Daniel stood at the center of the stronghold, the crystal floating gently before him. Its energy pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, filling the vast chamber with warmth and light. He had spent days learning, training, and understanding the vast legacy of Sarathis's people. Each lesson, each memory, was a thread connecting him to the past, and now to the future. The stillness of the chamber was suddenly broken by the hum of the ship arriving at the stronghold's entrance. Daniel turned and saw Sarathis materializing through the energy corridor, her presence bright, commanding, yet filled with the quiet sadness of departure. "You've done well," she said softly, her crimson eyes reflecting pride and a touch of sorrow. "You have accepted the legacy. You have proven yourself in ways few could." Daniel nodded, feeling both the weight of responsibility and a deep sense of accomplishment. "I still have so much to learn," he admitted, "but I understand now. I know why I am here." Sarathis's gaze softened. "And that understanding will guide you. Humanity has potential, Daniel. Courage, compassion, unity. These are what make your kind extraordinary. You carry that now, and in time, others will feel its strength through you." Daniel stepped closer to the crystal. "Will you stay?" he asked quietly, hope and longing mixing in his voice. Sarathis shook her head gently. "My place is with humanity beyond these walls. I must return to Vega 9 to tell them your story and the story of the stronghold. I must help them see that fear is not the answer, that cooperation and courage can overcome even the oldest threats." Daniel felt a pang of loss but nodded in understanding. He had chosen this role willingly. He had accepted that his life would be spent guarding the legacy, protecting the knowledge and energy that could guide the galaxy toward hope. The stronghold's guardians pulsed around him, acknowledging Sarathis's presence and the bond she shared with him. "Remember," she said, stepping closer, her hand lightly brushing his shoulder, "though I leave, we are connected. The lessons you have learned, the courage you have shown, will shine beyond these walls. You are not alone." Daniel smiled, faintly, the weight of her words settling in his chest. "I will honor it. I promise." With a final glance, Sarathis stepped into her ship. The hatch closed, and in moments she was gone, leaving Daniel alone in the glowing chamber. The silence that followed was different. He did not feel lonely. He felt purpose, responsibility, and above all, hope. Days turned into weeks as Daniel settled into his role. The Guardians guided him through the stronghold systems, teaching him the secrets of energy manipulation, the history of Sarathis's people, and the way to communicate with distant human colonies without leaving the stronghold vulnerable. He learned to interpret the holographic archives, reading the stories of battles, sacrifices, and victories. Through it all, Daniel found a rhythm in his life. He was no longer just a human patrol officer from Vega 9. He was the keeper of an alien legacy, a bridge between civilizations. The crystal remained a constant companion, pulsing with energy and knowledge, a reminder of his responsibilities and the promise he had made to Sarathis. One day, as Daniel observed the stars through the stronghold's viewports, a transmission flickered to life. It was from Vega 9. Arya Chen's familiar voice filled the chamber. "Daniel, we received your message. We thought you were lost." Daniel smiled, feeling warmth at the sound of a familiar human voice. "I'm here," he replied. "I am safe, and I have much to share." He began to relay the story of Sarathis, the hidden stronghold, the trials, and the legacy entrusted to him. The colony listened in awe, disbelief giving way to admiration and respect. Humanity had always feared the unknown, but now, through Daniel, they began to understand that not all that is different is dangerous. Some things, like courage and cooperation, could transcend worlds and species. Meanwhile, Sarathis' ship traveled through human colonies, carrying her account of Daniel and the stronghold. People listened, learned, and began to see the value of collaboration with alien allies. Her words carried hope, showing that the mistakes of the past, fear, mistrust, and prejudice, could be replaced with understanding, courage, and unity. Back in the stronghold, Daniel's life took on a new rhythm. He trained in both strategy and diplomacy, learning to anticipate threats and communicate across distances. The Guardians tested him regularly, offering challenges designed to refine his judgment, his courage, and his sense of responsibility. Every challenge was an opportunity to grow, to prepare for threats that still lurked in the galaxy. One evening, as he walked through the main hall, Daniel paused at the holographic archives. Images of Sarathis and the old battles filled the chamber, reminding him of the past, the trials, and the bond he had formed with her. He reached out, touching a hologram, and felt the energy pulse through him, a reminder of the promise he had made. He spoke quietly as if Sarathis were still beside him. "I will not fail, not now, not ever. The past will guide the future, and we will make sure hope survives." Outside, the remnants of the old wars still watched from the shadows. They were cautious now, observing the human who had passed the trials of the stronghold. They had learned something important. Humanity was not weak, not simple, and not predictable. They had courage, determination, and the ability to unite even with the most alien allies. Daniel became a symbol, even if few realized it yet. His vigilance, his choices, and his courage ensured that the legacy of Sarathis' people would not be lost. The stronghold pulsed with energy under his care, a beacon of knowledge and hope shining across the galaxy. And one day, when the time was right, Sarathis returned. She brought news of human progress, of colonies united, and of the beginnings of new alliances. Daniel met her in the central chamber, and for a moment, time seemed to pause. "You have done well," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "The galaxy is watching, and humanity is rising." Daniel smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "We have much work to do," he replied, "but we are ready." Together, they looked out at the stars, knowing that the future was uncertain but filled with promise. The trials had tested them, the past had shaped them, and now, the galaxy had a chance to witness the strength of unity, courage, and hope. The crystal pulsed brighter, a light that reached across the void, signaling that the legacy of the past had found its guardian. Daniel Kearns, once a simple patrol officer, was now a beacon for humanity and allies alike, a symbol of courage, wisdom, and the power of choice. Far across the galaxy, civilizations took notice. Rumors of the alien vampire who had walked with a human, and the human who had accepted the guardianship of ancient knowledge spread from colony to colony. Fear and suspicion began to give way to curiosity and respect. Daniel understood that his role was not just to protect the stronghold, but to inspire the universe. Humanity had the potential to rise, to meet the challenges of the galaxy with intelligence, courage, and compassion. And with allies like Sarathis, that rise would not be alone. The stars stretched endlessly before them, infinite and full of possibilities. Daniel knew that challenges would come, enemies would emerge, and the path would not always be easy. But he also knew that the trials of the stronghold had prepared him, that the bond with Sarathis had strengthened him, and that humanity's potential was limitless. And so, Daniel stood in the heart of the stronghold, the crystal's light shining around him as a new beacon for the galaxy, a symbol of hope, courage, and the enduring power of humanity. The Age of Unity had begun, and the story of Daniel and Sarathis would echo through the stars for generations to come.